Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today we're joined by Sean and Dean Kiner.
Hey, how's it going?
I'm Sean.
Happy to be here.
And me too.
It's a pleasure to have you guys here. I know for a fact that we're all huge fans of the work you've done with Star Wars, especially on Rebels, Bad Batch. But you've also done a lot of other fantastic work with other shows, which we'll get into in a little bit. So I guess the first one we should ask, what was it like to be working in the Star Wars universe?
We're both like huge Star Wars fans. I know it was really exciting, but a little terrifying because we knew that like we were trying to step into John Williams' shoes, and also like this is kind of a responsibility. It's like, hey, there's this thing I love. I hope that I don't like screw it up.
So what would you say then was what would you say was the most exciting part about stepping into this universe? And as you said, kind of stepping into the shoes of John Williams.
Well, I think just like getting to be a part of it is just like in any capacity. If I was like allowed to just like, hold a boom mic on set for something Star Wars or any level like production, just like write it or like getting coffee for somebody who works on Star Wars would have been really incredible to get to be a part of. And the fact that we get to do music for Star Wars feels like such a massive like aspect of Star Wars. It feels like one of the main characters of Star Wars is the music. It's like it's a huge part of its identity with what John has done and the precedent that has been set before like Clone Wars and everything. And so yeah, so wanting to do like a small thing and being able to do one of the biggest aspects is really a huge honor.
Yeah, at least like one of the more important elements to us when we were watching Star Wars. Like you put on like a soundtrack from the films and you're instantly rocketed back to the emotions and like the time and place you were when you're watching, at least for me. One of the most exciting things, in terms of doing Star Wars music was getting to do new Star Wars music for new characters and new like places and people.
Yeah.
That was something where it felt like, we were like, okay, like when it comes to the big things, when Vader comes on the screen, it's actually, we're less nervous about it because like, oh, that's covered. We know that like what's there, what the tools that we have in our toolbox for that are great, right? In terms of like actually forging a path forward in a different direction, that was much more terrifying for me.
Yeah. When do you think was like the first time that you like approached that, like having to address like a new character?
Oh gosh, I think it might have been Kanan.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Might have been Kanan.
Yeah, trying to figure out. We were all trying to figure out how we could have Kanan have his own theme going.
I assume that would be the Kanan intro theme you're referring to.
Yeah, which was like, so it started out as like that the Obi-Wan kind of thing when you first see Obi-Wan in the on Tatooine in the canyon, thing, and that was what we our direction was to use that kind of element for him when we first introduced him, and then later on in later seasons we were like, we should try to flesh out something, some kind of leitmotif for this main character, and so we took those notes and we kind of tried to continue it on and reharmonize it in a certain kind of way that something heroic and just something that spoke to his character more than just a short motif.
Where do you start when you're trying to think of what's the theme going to be for this character? How are we going to best represent them?
Like it's kind of case by case, right? Depending on like who's hearing something or who's feeling like the character. That's like the first thing, was like, someone will like be like, oh, I really want to do this, or I'm hearing something for them, or even like two people hear something for them, then we'll like kind of collaborate and like take elements from one person's sketches and like put them in. It's a whole process, obviously.
And then sometimes it just comes out fully fledged and
we're done. Oh, good. Hey guys, I buried myself in my studio for 3 days and I came out with this. What do you think? And then we worked on it a little more.
Yeah, so it's like it changes, like Sean was saying, like case to case, where like you're like sometimes you're just like, oh, I know what this is gonna be, and sometimes it's like really kind of reflecting on like whatever picture we have, or like whatever like we're watching them do, and like seeing how the character is like shaping out, which has been like, I guess has been like talking about Kanan. That's kind of how he developed too, where it was like we had an idea that started in like season 1, and then
With our direction from Dave.
Right. Yeah. And then it grew into like the final form. And yeah, so we've been doing that. And we also have like with Omega's theme, it's like, okay, we know this character is going to be a main character. And so we're gonna start like with a whole suite basically.
Yeah. So maybe a more precise answer is like, just to give you an idea of like what our headspace is. We watch these episodes, like we don't get a ton of information about what is going to happen in the season, because a lot of times when we're starting to look at these things, we don't like, those things aren't done yet. You know what I mean? They're not finalized and they're still workshopping.
So you're kind of stuck working with what they have on paper at this time, whereas they might not have this part completed yet.
Yeah, and so we go like, it's like kind of just like we go episode by episode, and so our initial like first impression of a character and like what we see a character doing is what informs what we do for them. If that makes any sense. Like, you know, we'll get some obviously creative direction from like Dave and Brad, but you know, it really is like we're having our first reaction. It's like, okay, how can we use what were you feeling like when you first saw this happen, you know? And so in that way, the writing really informs our score.
I know for a fact that pretty much everyone on our site will relate to the idea of locking yourself in a room for 3 days and then coming up with a nice finished product. We've done that plenty of times where someone will just hop in, hey, here's a 1,000-word article, done, here you go. We definitely do have a lot of
that seems to be the workflow these days, judging from like, you know, Bo Burnham.
Saving grace is that we all love what we do, and based on your music, I can tell that you both love what you do as well. Is there any composer specifically? I know John Williams is probably going to be one, but is there any composer specifically who maybe inspired you to get started with composing?
I really like the guy that did Jurassic Park. Who was that? The ET guy.
Giacchino. Michael Giacchino.
No, Giacchino's awesome. Yeah, Giacchino's awesome. I'm making it. Gosh, I mean, Alan Silvestri is if it's not John Williams, he's a big part of my childhood.
Yeah, we were just asked somebody was asking on Twitter who or if we listened to any Joe Hisaishi, and big yes.
Yeah, I was literally gonna say
huge part of our childhood was Joe Hisaishi's music, and to like another aspect of like Joe Hisaishi's work is not Akira Kusumura.
Nobuo Uematsu for Final Fantasy. Although that's a good one anyways. Yeah, put that one down for sure.
Yoko Kanno was always really fun. Composer for Cowboy Bebop. Oh, we have a surprise guest.
All right, this one is, no offense, this is now the star of this interview. Hello there, what is your name?
This is Mojo.
Mojo, it's a pleasure to meet you. Pleasure to have you on here. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I'm Kevin.
It's a pleasure to have you here.
Yeah, what's your name?
Hi, I'm Jordan, SE on site. It's a pleasure to have you here. I suppose that's a good point for us to transition into. In addition to composing, what instruments do you play yourself?
Many.
Keyboard for me.
Yeah, Sean's a keyboard player, and I started as a guitarist. I play keyboards, and I played some bowed instruments as well, like cello. And the thing, it's like a cello. It's a guitar, viol.
How did you first get started with composing?
I was working as a guitarist for a group that kind of did Vegas shows. It's back in the early 80s, late 70s. And then I got a job as their music director, which meant I had to do arrangements for them. So when you're doing an arrangement, you have to write horn parts and violin parts and things like that. And that kind of naturally led to composing, because as an arranger, you have to come up with new ideas, even though it's in the body of an existing tune. And so it kind of just led naturally into composing.
I think I can speak for everyone on site. we're definitely huge fans of your work.
We're all great fans of Wookieepedia.
Honestly, yeah, this is something we've been needing to bring up, is that we couldn't do a lot of what we do without
Yeah,
Wookieepedia.
Yeah, we look up a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember when I first discovered the site, and I'm like, wait, can you believe there's a site called Wookieepedia?
Well, funny enough, that was actually going to be my next question was, have you ever browsed our site? Are you familiar with us? So that is absolutely
Yeah,
incredible to find out.
Tips all the time. Like one thing that that I was using Wookieepedia a lot for was trying to figure out, okay, there a lot of it is referencing back. It's like, oh, when did this guy show up in Rebels? And we go to Wookieepedia and we figure out like what episode and where, and we're like, and then we're like, okay, we can bring that up on Disney Plus, and now okay, that's what we do. Okay, and then another thing that we've been doing a lot has been we've been writing a lot of lyrics for the source music in Sid's Bar for the Bad Batch.
Some people call it diegetic.
Yeah, diegetic music.
Yeah, playing on a on a stereo in the bar or whatever. And we and so like quite a few of those have like lyrics, and that'll start out in English, and then I'll be like, or then we were like get the direction of, oh, this actually needs to be in a like a different language. This can't be in common. So I've been going a lot to Wookieepedia and seeing like, okay, how does like Huttese kind of sound? And I'll start there, and I'll like kind of like figure out like a different like language that could be in the world of Star Wars.
It's basic, you D&D.
Basics.
For us, I guarantee, because I've got a live stream of this going into our Discord server as well. But you're all more than welcome to join at any point. We would love to have you. I imagine there's definitely a lot of smiling people right now in there. They're thinking, "Oh my God."
It is crucial work you're really doing.
We very much love everything we do. Obviously, for those who don't know, we've been around since like mid 2005.
I started on Clone Wars in 2006.
Yeah.
Has it been that long already?
Yeah, and that was back when George Lucas, was working. I would fly up there every couple of weeks, and George would review the music I'd done, and then we'd maybe talk about an episode that was coming up, and he, it's really a pleasure to work with him for like the first season or two of Clone Wars.
It was definitely revolutionary.
Yeah, I think, I don't know of any other composers who've worked directly with George Lucas on Star Wars other than myself and John Williams.
I know I personally like when working on articles on site, I like to put on a little bit of background music, and more often than not, it ends up being some of the background tracks that you've worked on. It fits any scenario. So when you first started with the Clone Wars, did you have going into it, did you have a specific idea of kind of what you wanted it to sound like, or did you just kind of go with the flow and adapt as things progressed?
I think George and Dave Filoni had a pretty good idea that he wanted it to be have a lot of ethnicity at times. The obvious thing was to retain the flavor and the soul of John Williams, but that was sort of a given. And the kind of guy, like I've read some books about George Lucas, and one of which is really great, this giant coffee table book that has a very young George Lucas pointing out to Mark Hamill somewhere, and when they're filming New Hope out in like Morocco or wherever they were. So this big coffee table book on the making of Star Wars. And when you read it, you really see that he is a guy who hates to repeat himself. And he's always wanting to do something new. And he's also hates to repeat anything that's been done before, and so, it's obvious that he made Star Wars, he was really pushing the envelope. But so he really pushed the envelope with me and musically. And sometimes it was wrong. And we had to, go through that journey together kind of and figure out when it was wrong and when it was right. But the really big thing early on was every planet had its own ethnicity. And we would have things like Bulgarian women's choir for, and I always, you know, I
Rhodia.
use, is it Rhodia, right, thank you. I never remember the planet.
It was a really cool.
That's why we're
Yeah.
here.
And I mean, I think that may have been George's idea. I think I didn't even know that such a thing existed back then. But anyhow, that would, you know, and obviously the whole episode is not full of that. It's more of a spice. It's a flavor as you're over the planet, as you're approaching it and stuff. And it happens at some in the episode, but it's not, you know, it's not pervasive. But that was something new, you know, and then actually after a while we sort of ran out of ethnicities, and yeah, and then we kind of followed more the path of modern film scores, but always retaining the John Williams, heavily relying on melody and strong melodies, much more so than a lot of modern film scores.
Well, I think you definitely nailed it with it. Do you have a particular favorite track that you had done for the Clone Wars?
If I had to pick one track, it seems like the fans and myself, probably the favorite one is Ahsoka Leaves. There's another one on the earliest soundtrack, on the soundtrack for the feature film Clone Wars, called General Loathsome / Ahsoka. And that has all of Ahsoka's themes on it. There are 3 of them. I really like that track, and don't remember writing it at all. You know, don't know what I was thinking. I would love to be, you know, because it's a track I'm really proud of, and you always kind of want to, you know, do that again. You want to hit that home run again, and you can't always do that. You know, sometimes it's a double or a single or a triple or something. You know, I use baseball a lot. I'm a big baseball.
What would be your favorite piece? And this is for all of you. What would be your favorite piece that another Kiner composed?
I mean, Ahsoka Leaves is hard to beat.
There definitely was not a lot of dry eyes watching that one.
That's a really good one. I really liked what she did for spoilers when Kanan dies.
Yeah,
that was good. Also the journey into the star cluster that Phil.
That was a very good one.
I'm getting all the answers. You go.
Yeah, the one for Zed was really really cool. One of my favorite ones that ended up being crafted by Sean was Sabine's theme. Just ended up being really cool to play with, and like whenever I got to do a Sabine scene, I'd be really excited, just because it felt so much like her character, and it felt really new for us, like a new way to approach like Star Wars. Like it's a nice time, and she's a fun character. So
speaking of Joe Hisaishi influence,
yeah.
Personally, I'm partial to the any of the Thrawn themes with that absolutely beautiful organ music, and I was asking you guys about that last night. I'm a huge fan of that orchestral feel to it.
The idea to use organ was actually Dave Filoni's.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. He was like, you guys should use organ for him. And we're like, okay. And it kind of grew out of that.
You know, that's one of the great things about working on this show. And you know, I mean, I can even go back to the, you know, like I've said about the Bulgarian women's choir. I mean, I kind of got to give George a lot of credit for that. And we have to give Dave Filoni a lot of credit for a lot of the stuff we've written. It's really it's just a marvelous playpen kind of, and it's a great environment to work in, and there's some really, really creative people. And, you know, now working with Brad Rao on, I want to call it Cookies, on the Bad Batch. Do you guys know about the Cookies thing? I mean, that was the code word for it before it came out, was Cookies.
Really? I actually didn't know that.
Maybe that's a secret little thing that you can give that. I think it's not secret anymore. Yeah.
Hey, by doing this interview, I get to fulfill my dream of becoming my own source on Wookieepedia, and we will now be able to source things to this interview. I think that's everyone's dream.
Yeah, but working with Brad, I mean, now he's coming up with ideas and giving us, you know, sparks of things that we hadn't thought of. And, you know, in the same way Dave Filoni did, and the same way George Lucas did. You know, it's really cool.
Yeah, in the same way that like Dave also like is giving us like the foundational like the foundation for the Bad Batch's sound too, right? When he was like giving us references like Guns N' Everon and Dirty Dozen and things. So.
Right. Yeah.
I've had a shout out question from one of our Discord channels here. It's from Berry Talk Enthusiast. He's asking, what is your favorite Wookieepedia article?
The article.
So I don't delve that much into it. Mostly I use it as a source for like, I don't know what the heck this character.
Are you a
was.
Wookieepedia article? Is Kevin?
Yeah, there's articles for all of you, but I would advise not looking at them yet. They do need a little bit of work. That's on our to-do list, like pretty much immediately after this. And I know that there's a book already kind of fleshing some things out.
I guess it's the one on John Williams. I haven't read it.
Yeah.
So Filoni, it was Filoni's idea to have that organ in Thrawn's theme. Do you know what the original inspiration for that was?
I don't know what his original inspiration was. That was our original inspiration, was Dave telling us, like you should use organ for him. It was a sound that Star Wars had never used before, and in the same way, like Thrawn is a character unlike any that we'd seen before. He's Moriarty in a galaxy with no Sherlock. So
one of the things I know, Dave is really into like a lot of classical orchestral music. So
his father used to take him to the opera a lot.
Okay.
And his father unfortunately has passed away, but he always speaks highly of his dad and the things he learned creatively from his dad. You know?
Yeah.
But I mean, I would imagine. Yeah, I don't know where Dave got that idea, but it instantly seemed to fit. You know, as soon as he said it, we're like, oh, freaking brilliant, right? I mean, totally.
Yeah.
Is the correct answer.
Terrifying at first, but then like, oh yeah, that's totally right.
And it definitely does fit for the character. Have you ever read any of the like the older books prior to your work with him?
I have not.
Sean, you read
some. I read some, but no, I mean specifically for Thrawn, no, I didn't.
No. Yeah.
Definitely.
So it was actually my first exposure to, like, I knew of him just because, like, you know, all my friends liked Star Wars, you know, and we were all like reading different things. And so like, I definitely knew what his whole deal was, you know what I mean? In the same way that like, when you're a kid, you know, it's like, you might not have seen a certain show, but you feel like you know exactly.
Yeah, just
know,
by that secondhand experience.
Just by hearing the buzz, kind of.
Yeah. So like, but my first like actual encounter with Ron was his appearance in Rebels. And like Dave Filoni like gave us the rundown also, like when he was, you know, giving us the foundation for that.
What was your favorite Bad Batch character motif?
It's got to be Omega for me.
Yeah, Omega's theme is definitely the one that we've put the most, or at least that I put the most like thought into. But I really liked what we ended up doing for Crosshair at the end of the season.
Yeah, that felt like it really grew kind of organically along with him as it went on.
So yeah, and I never answered like my favorite composition by other Kiners, so I would have to just echo those last two.
It's definitely a very well done one.
This theme and then the Crosshairs thing.
Yeah, Dean did a great job with Crosshair, like taking it from that very short motif that was in the hard-hitting synth, and then taking it into something that could be in orchestra as we see more of his humanity, you know. I thought that was really neat.
It's one of those characters that at the beginning you love to hate him, but then you start to get to know more about him. And by the end, you're like, oh, this poor guy.
Yeah, it's like, this guy's way too OP. Oh no.
Obviously, you don't just do work exclusively with Star Wars, as much as we would love that. Can you tell us a bit about some of your non-Star Wars works?
Recently, we did this Netflix animated show called Treze, which is like, takes place in modern day Manila, but there's all these
In the Philippines.
In the Philippines, yeah, sorry, Manila is the capital city of the Philippines, and you know, it's modern day, but all these mythological creatures from Filipino folklore are all real, and they exist in this underbelly, in this like secret world in the Philippines. And Alexandra Treze is this John Constantine kind of figure who basically is kind of like the person who is the liaison between humans and the underworld and the supernatural, who tries to protect humans and keep the peace, maintain the peace between them. And it's a really cool show.
So one of the cool things that we did for Treze, so my wife, I met in the Philippines about 40 years ago, and we're coming up on our 39th anniversary. So So Sean and Dean are half Filipino, half whatever I am, which is, European mutt. We sent one of their cousins way out into the boondocks,
Up in the north.
in the north part of Luzon, which is where the island that Manila is on, into the rice terraces. I mean, it was literally a 24-hour trek by bus and foot and taxi and pedicab and all these different things he had to take to get out to these people, indigenous people called the Ifugao. And he recorded a choir there. So he would call actually my wife's cell phone from this crazy remote area, but he had cell service, and I would hear what they were singing, and I would say, okay, we'll make it a little more like this. And but mostly they sang folk songs and a bunch of, anyhow, I bought him a digital recorder, and so he sent back the files to us of the recording of this indigenous choir, and then I actually had very little to do with it, but Sean and Dean crafted the theme song for Tresse, and it's from that. And I think it's just really cool. It gets them back to their roots, and also it's really authentic Filipino music, although it's got a kind of an electronic twist on it that they put in and stuff.
Yeah, we got to have a ton of fun.
Yeah, it was
and
really
just,
enjoyable scoring that show.
Like, yeah, wildly free to just do whatever we felt like was really fitting for like every episode. And it's a really fun like journey throughout like the 6 episodes that are out, where it's going from like drag races in Manila to like a zombie attack at a police station there. It's all over the place. It's a ton of fun, and it's really cool. It was really cool to do.
Also currently, it's not out yet, but we're about halfway through, not quite halfway through Peacemaker, when we're getting to work with James Gunn, which is an insane privilege and really a lot of fun. And that is just one of the most fun, rocking shows we've ever worked on. It's like going to Disneyland working on that show. It's so much fun.
I have another shout out one, this one from our resident battle droid, OOM224. What was the inspiration behind Omega's theme?
Sean's got to go for that one.
Omega's theme was one of those things where, like, 3 days burying yourself in the studio and then coming out with a thing. But it was a dark time. The world was, the world was doing its thing, and my baby daughter had just been born, and so I was like in the perfect emotional place to kind of like resonate with this, where it's like, okay, things are really bad, Empire like is like taken over from the Republic or whatever it is in this moment of Star Wars, but you have this bright light in the form of Omega, and so like my baby daughter was this just blinding ray of hope for me, and so
She continued.
and she's so good and she's so smart. But
I don't know where she gets that from.
Yeah,
Yeah,
seriously,
that's weird.
From her mom.
from her mom.
That's so
it's
cool. And it's not just Omega's theme, it's also your daughter's theme.
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much.
That is
And
fascinating.
My granddaughter.
Yeah,
And your granddaughter.
there's a kind of like, I think, like aspirational positivity to it and optimism that I'm really proud of. And then obviously once I had my rough sketch in the form of this suite, I brought it back to Dean and Kevin, and then we workshopped the heck out of it. And like the part that had actually been the B section ended up being the A section.
We kind of swapped it around. It was like
Okay.
it was beginning with the middle. It was just, so we had to change things around a little
You kind of
bit,
just
but-
played around with it from there as things progressed.
Yeah.
Another one is from Bray Talk again. Is there any themes that you've done that maybe you liked at the time, but in hindsight you would have changed slightly if you could go back and do it over again?
Not a note.
No. I feel like the fact that
I'm with you on this. I think they were perfect.
It was perfect. We're geniuses. It's good.
I second that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I guess I don't have any big regrets if nothing's coming to mind.
I mean, we're pretty serious when we turn stuff in about like that we like it. I mean, that's kind of the nature of writing in a way.
I have things that I did, and I want to use more, but can't.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest regret I have. It's like Ezra's theme, I miss that. You know, and
Yeah,
there's
same.
things in Hera's theme, I miss that.
Although, and then we got to use it.
Yeah, and we did get to use it in
Bad Batch.
Yeah, in the Bad Batch just a little bit, but there's a lot of them that got left behind that, man, we spent a lot of time on these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know, they're immortalized. And the nice thing about working on like serialized work is if there is something that you like, it's like, oh, I think that, you know, this needs to, you know, be a little different. You can just do it different. You know, it's like, oh, Crosshair needs like more of a fleshed out like kind of thing. Oh no, like not back then he didn't. Now he does. So now we will. So that's it.
I will say for myself personally, I feel like I did the very best job possible in this situation, but my rearrangement of the Star Wars theme for the very beginning of Clone Wars is one of my, I don't dislike it, but it's one of my least favorite things I've done.
Oh, I liked it.
I mean, there's people who
I've
like it.
listened to it too much. I watched the show. You
It's
can't.
just, you know, it started, I never wanted to rearrange that theme. I argued with George Lucas at the time, and this is my brand new boss in my first few encounters.
That's a bold move.
Yeah, but you know, I said, like, John did it right the first time. It does not need to be changed, you know, and it doesn't need to be rearranged, and it doesn't need to be disco and anything like that, you know, all those things. And I always say this, that I felt the best possible outcome with this would be that I didn't ruin it. And I feel like I achieved that. I did not ruin it. But anyhow, that's my one thing. And it was so damn hard. It just hurt. It just like, it took years off of my life. Absolutely.
So we have to ask, because I'm sure that pretty much everyone who's a Star Wars fan has always wanted this. What was it like working with like alongside George Lucas?
George is just one of the nicest guys I've ever met. And this is just, you know, and all of Lucasfilm, you can just tell. It's like, I use this analogy. If you walk into a doctor's office and the receptionist is curt with you and not very nice and stuff, you know, you better watch that doctor, because like the whole office, it's like the attitude comes from the top. And the same is, Lucasfilm is, there the nicest bunch of people you will ever work with. It's the best experience you could possibly have, from George Lucas to Dave Filoni to whoever I have worked with. It's just been incredible. And I feel like that all comes from George. You know, he, and like I said, he loved to experiment. And, you know, when you're experimenting, one of the things, and because this was terrifying for me, that early on, he was asking me to do certain types of music that I was pretty sure were not going to work in Star Wars, but he was trying to push the envelope. And so you're always thinking, when somebody gives you a task like that, it's like, how am I going to do this bad idea without getting fired? You know, and I can't, and you know, like, I can't say, well, that's a bad idea, because he doesn't want to hear that. You know, he wants to push the envelope. So his thing is like, go do it. Come on, let's do something different. And there were a lot of times when that became a great success. I would say more often than not, but there were also times when it just was never going to work in Star Wars. And you know, to his credit, he didn't fire me for doing what he
We're
told
very
me.
glad he didn't.
But I mean, there are other producers who would like fire someone, or other bosses who would get mad at somebody for doing what they actually told them to do, and it was their own bad idea. But you know, never mind, the guy they told to do it is the one who gets in trouble.
Yeah, he's the one that
He
takes
was
the hit.
never like, you know, he was like, oh, okay, well, that doesn't work. Okay, cool. Let's try something else. And that gives you the freedom to experiment and to really be creative.
Have you ever done any sort of cameo appearances, say like voice work or anything like that in the Star
No,
Wars?
doggone it. You,
No.
and let's
Yeah. Yeah, I really want to be a Jawa or something. That just sounds fun. Yeah, I know it's going to be hot, but I want to do it.
Truthfully, I'm hoping to use this to launch into a larger interview series for us. We tried doing some things a couple of years back, but it was largely text-based at the time, and nobody wants to read, like, you know, an hour's worth all just in text form. We have enough trouble getting people to read 1,000-word articles. I'm very much hoping that if people like this, maybe we can use this to maybe do some more with you guys in the future, and see if maybe others might be interested in picking up on it too. Especially now that we have our YouTube channel going.
Yeah.
You gotta find some of the voice actors. Those guys are so
Yeah.
talented.
Yeah, they have so many stories and
Man,
great,
women
like,
do that.
so much cool stuff to talk about. Like the way that they're thinking about the characters gives like such cool insight.
One of our dreams is definitely to ask Mark Hamill, what are these secret cameos that you hinted at but didn't give us any detail on? This one from Bray Talk. What goals do you still have in your career?
Probably like 4 more decades of doing it.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
A steady amount of work is my goal.
Like this, but like, you know, forever.
Yeah, that's actually true. I think that's the best answer. You know, I feel like, well, we are in the golden age of television, at least as it's defined now. I myself am watching way more serialized television, whether that be Game of Thrones or Westworld or, you know, our shows. Narcos, which we work on, I think is one of the best shows ever made. So, I mean, to be part of this guy, I mean, I would argue that shows like that, like Narcos or Westworld, are better than 90-some% of the feature films that come out. So I think we're just right in the right place. I mean, and yeah, to work on even Trece, which we got, and to have that kind of freedom, you know, and
yeah, especially like not having a lot of like Filipino content to like create for it. Like it's cool that we get to do something like that, and like that it feels like something that hasn't existed before. It feels like such a monumental like thing to have accomplished. So yeah.
Talking about responsibility, like feeling the weight of like, oh, okay, I want to try to like invent a genre a little bit.
I think we all want to just stay interested in what we're doing also. I mean, everybody wants to work, but we've been really spoiled in that we don't have to work on crap.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of guys who have to work on some real garbage. I know some great musicians who, you know, who will never be considered great composers by the outside world because of what they're associated with. And I'm not going to go any farther naming anything, but you know, it's unfortunate for them that, and they're still lucky to work. I mean, it's so hard to get a gig. It's just so freaking hard. You know, anybody just starting out, like graduating university now, I just feel for you, because so getting a gig is hugely great. And there's a lot to be said for that. But then going beyond that, after a while, you want a little more than just a gig. I mean, I started out, these guys are lucky. I mean, I started out doing blooper shows, you know, and the sliding glass door would close and I would have a trombone go, you know, like, wow, I don't have to do that anymore. That's so cool.
So do you have any, on that topic then, do you have any maybe words of advice or any wisdom for an aspiring composer who's looking to maybe get their first big break in this industry?
Learn how to restart your computer and troubleshoot.
Knowing your gear, right, Sean?
Yeah.
You were gonna say that?
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, you know, try to get in as an assistant with a composer so you can see what the actual workflow is like.
What the real world is like.
Yeah, what's actually demanded of us from the gig, and you know, also you'll be able to observe how we interact with clients and things. You know, it's like it's very much an apprenticeship. You know, it's like one of the last like jobs where you can have like a kind of master and apprentice dynamic. You know, so like try to find a composer and be their Padawan.
So I will add to that.
Padawan?
This is I bring this. I don't have it with me, but I bring this old score I have of John Williams' Star Wars. It was released in the late 70s. I probably bought it in 82 or 83. And it's dog-eared, and I've marked it up. And, you know, since 1982, I've been marking up a Star Wars score. That was because when I heard that music, I wanted to do that. And I knew I wanted to make that sound. I didn't know how he made that sound. You know, so I got the score and I analyzed it. And I continue to analyze, you know, classical composers as well as film composers. But my point is that I'm one of the only people writing Star Wars right And there is a connection between me buying that score and constantly studying that, because, you know, in 2006, it was an audition I had to go through, and that's how I got the gig. And I didn't have to go run out and buy that score. I already had it, and it was part of my it was part of my writing process already, because I'd studied it for so many years.
Okay.
So when I got the audition, you know, it just came out, because I knew how to sound like Star Wars, because I did.
Yeah.
Well, I think you definitely
So,
nailed
you
it.
know, do that. If you hear something you love, find out how, you know, make that sound.
What would you say then, between the three of you? I imagine there'll be some very different answers, but what would you find is the most challenging part of what you do?
Well, for me, the most difficult aspect is the sheer volume of stuff that we have to produce. It puts a time limit. Yeah, it puts a time limit on how much, on what you're doing, because like, okay, I need to write something in the next 3 hours that's going to be great, or I'm shipping whatever I make because I don't have the time to move. Because, like, you know, production schedules, they can get really compressed, you know, especially towards the end. And, you know, we work on multiple shows. So that, I think, is the biggest challenge, is like the pressure in the moment. Like, you think like, oh, I have all the time in the world, but sometimes it really does feel like, oh, okay. It is like, you know, oh, I have like a matter of minutes to think of a melody that I really like for this section.
and then to execute and make it like a professional recording.
One of the things I'm trying to do is like increase my technical abilities all the time. Like I really just want to be like good at shredding guitar, and I'm super not. I'm like, I know
You're
how
way
to,
better than you give yourself credit for. It's just because you know people like.
there is no end to being good, you know. There's like
That's right.
there's no, oh, I'm the best guitarist now, you know, or I'm like the best instrumentalist or whatever it is. It's like, it will, that's something I'm always going for. I think whenever I notice that I'm struggling the most is when I'm trying to really push myself to do something that I can't do. And then I usually have a realization. I'm like, oh, what if I did that thing that I'm good at?
Yeah, that's true. In a way, like, you know, he's kind of being like George Lucas, because he's trying to push the envelope all the time. And then sometimes you just got to pull back and go, that's not the answer this time. The answer is not to create a new Star Wars or to create a brand new musical genre. You know, the Beatles did that. You know, I mean, let's just do what we're good at. I mean, that's not all the time. Sometimes you push yourself, but you can't always. Sometimes
It's almost always an accident when you push it too. When you like, when you find yourself like, oh, this is cool as hell.
Yeah.
Like, where did that come from? Nobody knows.
So I'll give my answer. I'll give my answer to the most challenging. Now I have to preface it with saying that right now, currently in my career, I am working with all of my favorite people. I mean, everybody is just a dream boss right now. I mean, this is absolutely true.
I thought you were talking about us.
No way. But no, all the producers and directors I work with are truly fantastic. We're really fortunate. But I will quote Sean Connery when he got some award. I saw him, he walked up there and he goes, I've been privileged to work with some of the most talented, kind, creative geniuses in the business. The rest of you, you know who you are. And I'll just leave it at that. That's the most challenging for me in the earlier parts of my career.
I think definitely on our end, our biggest saving grace is the fact that Wookieepedia does not have a deadline.
That would be a curse for me. I would never get it.
Me as well.
Yeah,
If you need a deadline, I just, you know,
we need deadlines.
I preface this by saying I am absolutely terrible with procrastinating and like, well, I'll just do this tomorrow, which is why this article is not done yet.
What's the cliche? Art is never finished. It's only ever abandoned.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to mention how many projects I've abandoned on site.
Well, sometimes you abandon it publicly as well.
I used to procrastinate a lot, but the last 15 years or so, I guess I stop doing that.
Yeah,
You got
because
so
we-
much work that you couldn't. That's what happened.
Or you started getting us to make sure that you were getting things done.
Yeah.
I'll do one more shout out to wrap it up then. This one's from
Sounds good.
Airhead02. He's wondering, what outside of Star Wars influenced you?
In terms of media,
Yeah.
or
Music.
like,
You're writing.
Yeah, music, writing, or yeah.
Similar answers to like the composers that we talked about earlier. Than like Silvestri and Joe Hisaishi and like Smetana.
Are those we've never talked. Those are your guys, like Alan Silvestri.
Those are the answers that come to mind.
Yeah.
Definitely right now for like Bad Batch, Silvestri was like really. I was really into Silvestri at the time that like we were starting to like put the thing down for that. I don't know what that is. It was just something I was like, I need something like homey and comfy, and I was just listening to a lot. It's just like felt like childhood.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, a big one for me is I was trying to think of his name. His name was Ryuichi Sakamoto. He's like a kind of like classical avant-garde composer who does like a lot of piano stuff, and it's just really like dark in a surprising way. And I think I really like that. I was also thinking about the composers for a show called Devs on Hulu.
Oh, he's really good.
It's a huge one for me. So it's three guys, it's like a band called The Insects, Ben Salisbury and Jeff Barrow are they just have so much fun making cool dark sounds, and it's just so interesting, and like it also just like really captures the show that they made, and so they're big. And also like a huge guy is Gustavo Santaolalla, where we're just like, I didn't know how to, or that was like something music could do.
So we co-wrote Hell on Wheels with him, and Narcos with him as well.
Yeah,
And
Jane the Virgin,
and a couple of movies.
Making a Murderer.
Making a Murderer. Forgot about that.
Yeah, I was looking at a little bit of the some of what Narcos is about. It looks like a really good show.
Oh, it's a fantastic show.
Yeah.
It's a rough watch. But
Yeah.
it's good.
Yeah, especially because it's like real world.
It's
stuff.
all
It's like,
true. Yeah, that's the problem. Gustavo kind of, when I started working with Gustavo, it was before you came on, right? He really introduced me to minimalism in the best possible way. He will say things like the use of negative space and things like that. And when you are minimalistic, you use one instrument or two or something. So there's no hiding when you use one instrument. You better have a good idea, or a good sound, or whatever it is, because that's kind of it. You can't layer things on top of it and make it, sound better or whatever. That is your idea, and
It's like sushi.
and it's a great challenge.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But an interesting like twist on that also is that like the sound design of whatever they're doing also becomes a lot more important in how it interacts with the bonus and the bare instrumentation that you're using. Right?
So I'll also say so my influences have changed over the years. I always used to give the example, and this is in the 90s or something like that. I would say Jerry Goldsmith, in order: John Williams, Jerry Goldsmith, Ennio Morricone, James Horner, maybe John Barry. The great, and those guys are all great melody writers. Jerry, a little less so, but Jerry's so experimental and cool. He's just one of the great film composers. So after I kind of exhausted that, in 20 years or whatever, I started going a little more to like their sources, and delving into like your Stravinsky and Debussy and Tchaikovsky, even another great melody guy that he's just amazing. Having said that, I would say probably if I had to name my favorite music ever, it's probably Led Zeppelin. So I guess
Back to the roots.
I got to put Jimmy Page above Stravinsky.
Hey, that's legit though.
Yeah, if you listen really closely to the poem.
And it is if you see me in my car, it's probably Zeppelin is playing, or maybe, Freddie Mercury, or something like that. I mean, Queen, the Bohemian Rhapsody is probably one of the greatest pieces of music ever written in a way, I mean, there's those kind of things are just amazing to me.
I guess that takes us just over the hour mark. So the final one with the next celebration now scheduled and coming up. Do you have any plans to attend? Yeah, Anaheim, August 18th to 21st, 2022.
22.
22.
Oh, next year.
So it's like a year from now. Yeah, I think we would love to go.
Yeah, somebody invite us.
I really want to thank you for your time today, and thank you, Kevin, for that surprise cameo appearance. That
Yeah.
absolutely made my night.
Yeah.
Special cameo from the pug gets a mention also.
Yeah. Mojo.
Jesus.
Oh, Jesus.
I love that.
I had to leave my
Thank you.
cats locked out of the room, otherwise they would be literally knocking the camera over. But seriously, huge thank you. I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
may the force be with you.
May the
Yeah,
force be
yeah.
with you. I hope you all have a good day or a good night, I guess, because I think you're in the same time zone as me.
Yeah.
All right, take care.
All right.
Yeah.